Well, good morning and welcome back to another week on my allotment. As you know, we were away last weekend. Went away close to the Brecon Beacons, beautiful part of the country. We didn't take any video because it was just so hot. We barely left the campsite. We certainly didn't go walking. It was in the mid-30s and it was just too uncomfortable. We spent each day on the campsite going around the caravan with our chairs, hugging the shade. Anyway, we had a great weekend despite the very hot weather. And we have now, since then, I think it was Tuesday, had some moderate rain. These large tank water butts that fill off the roof, they're about a third full. So we have had a fair drop, although, you know, how much difference it's made after the drought we've had, I don't know. But it was very gratefully received. And this week, again, I have some very specific jobs. The major job today, it's Sunday morning, is clearing that pea frame, or those pea frames. They've sat there long enough. I've collected my seed, so I need to get all that down. There's a lot of really large weeds in there, a lot of stinging nettles, and it's all got to come down, and that bed's got to be cleaned up. So welcome along. Few things to show you, and we'll start with a wander around the plot, looking at some specific things I want to highlight. Go on, my beauty. Brew time. Well, starting down the far end of the plot, I thought I'd show you the wigwam that I put the excess gourd birdhouse on. My goodness, I had no idea just how prolifically they grow. They've completely swamped the tripod or the wigwam, and now they're flowing out across the ground, completely unkept, and I'm loving it. It looks like some sort of art installation. You know the poppies at the Tower of London where they flowed out of a window across the grass? It sort of reminds me of that. Anyway, I find it very attractive. I don't think the gourds on it are going to come to anything, but I don't really need them, and I'm just loving the aesthetic of it. It's fantastic. And if I bring you round, the other thing I wanted to point out was the pumpkins. In the last week and a bit, all the leaves have started to wither and yellow, which is a perfectly natural part of the growing process of the pumpkin plants. And what that does, as you know, is it exposes the fruits, and they then ripen, which is exactly what's happening. And I've counted them. I've said to you before, but if you're new to the channel, I've got 2 plots here, and each plot, as part of the contract with the farm shop, we have to provide 6 pumpkins per plot to the shop for Halloween. So I've got 2 plots, so I need 12. I've counted them. I have 20 pumpkins, so more than enough. And some of our neighbours have got young kids, so as I did last year, I shall take these home and give them to the neighbours for carving and so on. So very happy, a good crop. They're pumpkin Charmant, and they're fantastic, perfect size, good colour, very happy. Definitely my best ever year for carrots. I grow all my carrots in tubs because the soil here is far too heavy, and I've never managed to germinate carrots in the soil, so I grow them in tubs with a sandy mix. And they've been fantastic. We're picking them almost every time I come up here. There is a little bit of carrot fly damage, but you know, we work around that and they're absolutely fine. And as I speak, the sun is just starting to poke its head above the horizon. That is 6:05 on a Sunday morning. Slowly we're losing the long days, but never mind. Well, I've never really managed to keep on top of the weeds in this bed, and it gets more difficult as the leeks get bigger. But I really didn't pay much attention this year to growing leeks, and I regret that. However, I normally start in January, February, but I left it till about March, April this year, and I've never quite got a grip. So anyway, but you know, it is what it is. I've had better crops from other things, but I have now got some usable leeks. They are Musselburgh, and they're not great, and I hate the fact that the beds are a mess, but they're doing okay. We will get some leeks this year. Well, from something I haven't paid attention to and I'm not that pleased with, to something I haven't stopped paying attention to and I'm absolutely thrilled with. The gourds birdhouse, you know, wow. I don't think you can even eat them. I don't know. I'm not growing them to eat them, but I'm absolutely thrilled. I have actually managed to bump into these a couple of times where I'm not paying attention, and you know, they are just fantastic. Yeah, thrilled. Again, they grow prolifically, and every day I come up here, I get the secateurs out and I go around and nip off all the leaders, and even any new fruit that are setting, I chop them off, because I've got, I don't know, I've not counted them, but I must have at least a dozen, maybe 20 good size gourds that I'm going to cut off in maybe a month, I guess, and then save them. I guess I'm going to have to save them for a year, and they harden, and then next year I'll be able to paint them and make birdhouses out of them. I'm not really sure. What I might do is chop them off and then take most of them to the farm shop, with an A4 laminated sheet explaining what you do with them. And I'm hoping that, you know, adults will buy them for their kids to paint and make birdhouses out of. Anyway, if they sell or not, I don't mind. I have thoroughly enjoyed growing them, and I will definitely be growing them again. I think I got the seeds from Premier Seeds. I think. I should have kept a note of that, shouldn't I? Anyway, I'm thrilled with them and I'm loving them. After some initial problems getting this netting right, this bed had cauliflower and calabrese in it, and I had a packet of free seed of Swede Marianne, which apparently is clubroot resistant. So I sowed them in the greenhouse, and I put them out here, I don't know, about a month ago, and they took a bit of a clobbering from the cabbage whites, but they're away now. What I need to do at some point is get under that net and see if the Swedes are developing. But yeah, very happy to see the top growth doing well. These are my Brussels sprouts, and I've only been under that net once, and it was to clear out the weeds and to cut some of the lower leaves off, and it looks like it needs doing again. And a job I do want to do today is to cut all the tops off the plants so that the plants concentrate on growing the sprouts instead of all the top growth. So I've got to get under that net today and do that. That might take a bit of effort. Well, we are cropping tomatoes like crazy, and Cheryl is sick of tomatoes, but actually, you know, she's very busy in the kitchen turning these all into sauces and freezing them chopped up for soups later, you know, when the weather starts to cool. I've got a couple of slight casualties. You can see one here that's leaning over. The fruit, you know, you can imagine, can't you? They are very, very heavy. These canes have been in here all summer, and a couple of them have given way. So a little bit of work to do there today, and a huge crop to take as well. Well, here's today's main effort. What a mess. And, you know, it's a shame we lost the peas. We got a good crop off them, but we didn't get as good as we could have. They just burnt in that heat wave. And, you know, the calendulas and all these different weeds. It's all got to come out, clean the bed up, dismantle the frames. Quite how far I get with that today, I'm not sure, but it's got to be done. Well, this is the asparagus bed, and I had some spare marigolds left over and I stuck them in at the edge, and they've really taken off. It's a real beautiful bed. I love the top growth of the asparagus, which I think needs to be chopped to the ground in October. I'll check on that, but I think that's the case. And across the top there, you can see one of the 2 trees I bought. Was it last year or the year before? That one is called Jonah Gold, an eating apple, and it looked great. There is some damage on the apples, something's had a go, but not on all of them. And I've taken one crop. I went round and checked, and some of them came away easily, so they're at home. And you may or may not remember, Terry gave me these sunflowers, telling me proudly that they were going to be blue. Well, I don't think I'm colourblind. Terry, that's not blue. I mean, it is stunning, but it certainly ain't blue. This is the perpetual spinach that all ran to seed, and I've chopped it all to the ground, and it's coming back okay. It still looks like it's running to seed a little bit. You can see a flower spike there, but you know, we've harvested quite a bit, and I shall continue to harvest. And one plant didn't run to seed, so we've always got that to fall back on. Very good. This bed up next to the tool shed had potatoes in, kestrel and Charlotte, and I've made an error of judgment. I left them in the ground way too long, and I've lost an awful lot of them to slug and other damage. Anyway, it's not a problem. We've got lots of potatoes. I've learned my lesson. I've left them in too long, so be it. I then raked over the ground when I've got them out, and I've given it a really good top dressing of one of my bays of leaf mould. The only thing I would say is that whole bay went on here. I've got 25 beds, and it top dressed one bed. So be it. It is very thick. It's 4 or 5 inches thick, and it will do that bed the world of good. In the spring I have daffodils just along here, so they'll love that leaf mould. And I would just say I absolutely love this dwarf cosmos that's in the little raised bed in front of the tool shed. It gives me an immense amount of pleasure. I do have to keep deadheading, but I don't mind doing that, and it looks an absolute treat. And last but not least, the pond. I had a few more rocks which I've sort of put on, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I see frogs in it quite often. All sorts of life has colonised this pond very quickly. Absolutely thrilled with it. And right next to it are these lovely zinnias. Again, there was some spare seed I had in my seed box, and a couple of months ago I thought, oh, I'll give them a go, see if they'll germinate. Well, they did. I've put them in these pots, and they are an absolute joy. Fantastic. One thing I should point out is a job I did this week, which was extremely boring and laborious, was I cut back all the strawberry plants, cut them right back, try to take off all the brown and dead leaves, and weeded as much as I could, which has really cleaned up and tidied the beds. And there were a couple of dead or dying strawberry plants that just haven't done well. And so I grew about half a dozen plants on the runners with some pots and U-shaped clips, as is the convention. And those plants have taken and done very well, and you can see them standing there in the gaps, ready to go in. So that's a strawberry bed sorted, albeit what I'm hoping to do in the autumn is when I dig out a couple of my compost bays, any really good stuff in the bottom, I will mulch around the plants and give them a bit of a feed from the compost heaps. But yeah, they're looking a lot tidier. A week ago, when the heat wave was still on, the pond was absolutely swarming with honeybees. The hives are up the hill, and it's happened before, but I had to be very careful moving around the pond. They're not interested in me, they weren't going to do me any harm, and I left them to their own devices. But they were obviously, where I've got the slope into the water and a couple of rocks sticking out, they were down at the water's edge drinking. And on my Wednesday, when I work up at Bigswear Estate, one of the chaps up there owns a commercial honey business. So he deals with bees all day long. And he explained to me what they're doing. Because of the heat, you can imagine inside a beehive, the heat is even greater. And if it gets to a certain temperature, the honey starts to melt and the bees die. So what they do in extreme heat is the worker bees come out, they take in moisture or water, go back to the hive, and they deposit this water in each of the cells of the hive. And then the thousands and thousands of bees create a draft with their wings, which circulates around the hive. And because of the moisture that they've deposited in all the cells, this has a great cooling effect, and it keeps the temperature inside the hives at a workable level. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, absolutely wonderful to watch. And when I walk down this path at the side, they're going left and right of me, going back up to the hives. It's been absolutely wonderful to sit and watch. But I was really fascinated with the fact behind what I was observing. Quite interesting. I have a couple of onion related issues that I'd like to share with you. The first is I've had an official complaint from the long-haired Sergeant Major at home, and the complaint is my onions are too big. Do you know, I do find sometimes my wife can be so unreasonable. Yeah, I mean, she's got a point, hasn't she? So, yes, she's told me to grow smaller onions in the future. And that's a good point, because when I plant my onion sets in the autumn or the spring, I always plant them about 9 or 10 inches apart, so that I have plenty of room to get the hoe between when I'm weeding in the months to come. But of course what that means is the further apart they're planted, the larger they grow. So I've got to bring them in and halve that distance at least, and be prepared to hand weed, I think, because you know, nobody needs an onion that big in a meal for two. So we do need smaller onions. Yeah, her complaint may just be valid. And the second point is, when I've got a question: when does a spring onion become an onion? This is one of my spring onions that I've just pulled out of the bed here, and they've been growing since the spring. But of course we grow spring onions in the back garden as well, so when Cheryl says I need some spring onions for salad, I pop out there and get them. So these have just been allowed to grow and grow, and I've got, 20 or 30 of them. It's like, when does a pond become a lake? When does a stream become a river? When does a village become a town? These are all questions that should be pondered. While I'm by this arch, it reminds me, I did say that this blackberry cane here had come over the arch and was now going down, and it would stop growing because it's on its way down, and plants don't grow downhill. And one of my commentators said, well, it won't grow downhill until it reaches the ground, and then it'll root. And the comment is right. It's about a foot off the ground, and if it reaches the ground, I will pin it down to see if it will root, which I'm sure it will, to create a new plant. But that has grown all the way up, across and down this arch. I would never have believed it. Well, very happy with that. God only knows what Cheryl's going to do with those tomatoes. I think the freezers are all full, but some veg for Sunday dinner, some beetroot for our juices, and while I'm here I've just infilled that gap there, made a trellis. So another job ticked off the list. Happy with that. Oh, I'm not getting any younger. Oh boy, what a good day. We haven't had a really cracking sunrise for a while, but this morning was okay. And again, as I always say, very productive day. That's all the peas gone, that bed is cleared. Quite a few empty beds now, and I don't mind that. I don't tend to grow many crops through the winter. We rely on our freezers, so that's why harvesting right now is extremely important. Really good crop of tomatoes, but when you look at the bed of tomatoes, you wouldn't know I'd taken any. So there's lots more to come, and we're running out of freezer space again. So Cheryl and I have talked about that, and we'll have lots of tomato sauces and tomato soups over the next couple of weeks. We tend to enjoy this tomato soup, especially in the winter, but rather than lose them, I'm quite happy to have tomato soup for my evening meal now. And that's the battle, is when everything crops and it tends to come in a oneer, making sure you maximise its use and waste as little as possible. The juicer comes in handy, especially with the beetroot and the cucumbers. A lot of the cucumbers are going into the juicer. So yeah, really good day. Thank you for joining me. Thanks if you've made it this far, and a big thank you to all the subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you hanging on through all my rants. And we're around for the next few weeks, I think. So I shall be back here on the plot next weekend. So thanks for joining me. Look after yourself until I see you again. Bye for now.